Okay, hello guys. Today our topic is about the number six. Okay, we are just talking about ratio, proportional, and the map scales. Okay, so let's move into the first part about ratio fundamentals. Okay, so what is ratio? I think ratio is not very difficult because I guess in our daily life we have met it a lot of times. Okay, so for ratios we can set like A over B, or you can also set the ratio of A to B. We can write down as A versus B like this way. Okay. So we can also just transfer into the fraction numbers. Like we have like 12 versus 18. Okay. And we knew that maybe we can written down as like 12 over 18 like this way. And also we knew that for a fraction number, we can just divide it by the highest common factors together, right? So we can divide it by 6 together, and 12 over 6 is 2, and 18 over 6 is 3, right? So we can written down as 2 over 3, or you can also set as 2 versus 3, okay? So like this way, 2 versus 3. And also decimals can be written as like ratio, okay? So like 1.5 versus 2, we can first time 2 at the same time. So 1.5 times 2 equals to 3, and 2 times 2 equals to 4, okay? So the final ratio here is for 3 versus 4, okay? And also for fractions, and we can set here is a half versus 1/3. And if you want to make them becomes a ratio, so you can times 6 together. So 1 over 2 times 6 equals to 3, and 1/3 times 6 equals to 2. So here the ratio becomes 3 versus 2. Okay, that is for the fractions right here. Okay, 1 over 2 versus 1 over 3. Okay, so we can just consider as we have a maybe we have a like milk tea, okay, and you want to add some sugar into this, and we knew that maybe we have 1 liter of the milk tea, okay, there's a lot amount of milk tea in your cup, okay, and also you have to add like maybe for 1 milliliter sugar inside of this, okay, so maybe it will be tasty, okay, so if you want to copy another cup, so maybe you have 2 liter of the milk tea, you have to add it with 2 milliliters sugar, right? You have to make them in a proportional relationship, right? It's 1 milliliter over 1 liter and equals to what 2 milliliter versus 2 liter, right? So like this understanding, I guess you can understand what I'm saying. Okay, if you're a fast later in cooking, okay, you just want to become a cook, and you'll find that oh here you have to make the every kind of ingredients at the same ratio, right? So this is a meaning or understand what is ratio means right here. Okay. So first, for ratio, we have to make them in the same units right here. You can find simplify 20 centimeter versus 1 meter. Okay. So first, you can just change the larger unit to a smaller unit. Okay, like 1 meter, you can just read it as 100 centimeter. Okay. So here you can say 20 centimeter versus 1 meter can be written as 20 centimeter versus 100 centimeter. So final answer, you can just divide it by 20 at the same time. That is 1 versus 5. Okay, like this. Okay, and if you want to like sharing in ratio, you can set here is 2 versus 3. And that is for Anne and Bob. You can say, oh, maybe here is 2 plus 3. We can just consider as 5 parts. The total part is 5. Okay. So then you can say, oh, maybe for $60, you can calculate the value for one part. So for total amount over the total part equals to $12. That means for a part, you have $12 in this part, okay? And then you can say, oh, maybe for N we have 2 parts, and Bob we have 3 parts, and just using 2 times 12 equals to 24, and Bob just using 3 times 12 equals to 36, okay? And you can make a final check at the last step, that is 24 plus 36 equals to 60, right? So that is how we can calculate by ratios. This is just a very basic understanding for ratios. You can just consider the parts, right? Okay. And here is also a question like finding the total, like here, the ratio of the boys to girls is 4 versus 5, and there are 20 boys, right? So we can say for 4 parts of the boys, that is 4, right? So the total number of them is 20, okay? So we can say 4 parts equals to 20. So for each part is 20 over 4 equals to 5 students, okay? So for one part, we had 5. So after that, you can find the target, and for the girl is 5 parts, right? So you can use 5 times 5 because you 25 girls, okay? Total number of girls is 25, okay? And also you can just written as the ratios like this way, like 1 versus n, okay? So like sometimes in IGCSE often like requires you to written down like this way, like 5 versus 8 into the form 1 versus n, And then you can just written as in fractional numbers, right? So we said before, like 5 versus 8 can be written as 5 over 8. And for 1 over n, or 1 versus n, can be written as 1 over n, okay? So for this equation, you can times 8n together on the left and around the right, right? So for 5 over 8, you times 8n, you can find it is 5n, right? For 1 over n, you can also times 8n, right? And n they delete together and only left with 8, right? So for here is 5n equals to 8. So for n equals to 1.6, okay? Okay, that's for these equations. I guess it's not very difficult for you, right? Okay, so here are some practice for you. Okay, so you can just pause a video and trying to think a little while. And if you have some ideas, you can just make a like check with me. Okay, so please just finish these problems. It's your time. Okay. Okay, so I guess we have already finished all the practice, so let's maybe just review together. So for the first problem, simplify the ratio of 45 minutes versus 2 hours, right? So for here, we said before, like if you want to make them simplified, so you have to first make sure that the units of the two sides equals to each other, right? So for hours, it's a bigger amount rather than minute, right? So we can say 1 hour equals 60 minutes. So here you can write in that 2 hours is 120 minutes, right? So here's 120 minutes. And 45 minutes versus 120 minutes, we can set, oh, we can just delete, maybe divide it by 45 together, right? So for 45 minutes, we divide it by 45 is 1, right? And for 120 minutes, we can divide it by 45, and the answer is 4. So for here, the answer is 1 versus 4, or 1 divided by 4, okay? And the second question is divide 80 kilogram in the ratio 3 versus 7, right? So we knew that we can just consider as parts, right? 3 versus 7 means we have 3 parts and 7 parts. So total number of this is 10 parts, right? So here you can say, oh, 80 kilogram over 10. For each part, we have 8 kilogram, right? For each part. So for the first part is 3 parts. We have 3 parts times each part is 8 kilogram per part. So it's 3 times 8 kilogram equals to 24 kilogram, right? And for the left 7 parts, we can say 7 times 8 equals to 56 kilogram, right? So that is for the two parts, 24 kilogram and 56 kilogram, okay? So for the third question, a recipe uses sugar and flour in the ratio 2 versus 5. If I use 200 grams of sugar, how much flour do I need, right? So for this problem, you can also like using this way, like we have total part is 2 versus 5, but for here is 200 grams of sugar, right? So for here, the sugar is 200 grams. And to diversify means here we have 500 grams of the flour, okay? So we can say, oh, maybe here, flour, the amount of flour is 500 grams, okay? That is for the third question right here, okay? 500 grams. And for the first question, writing down the ratio 4 versus 9 in the form 1 versus n, right? So we can say, oh, maybe here, 4 over 9 equals to 1 over n. And you can just written down as the fractional numbers, right? So you can just times 9 in together. It is 4, n equals to 9. So for a single n is 2.25, okay? That is for the first problem. And last problem is a challenging problem. Let's do it together. We have three values here, A, B, C, right? The share money in the ratio 3 versus 4 versus 5, and C receives $30 more than A, right? So we can consider as parts, right? So we can say, oh, maybe A has 3 parts and C has 5 parts, right? So in the question it said C receives $30 more than A, right? So we can say, oh, maybe 5 minus 3, we have more 2 parts rather than A, right? So we can say 2 parts means $30, right? So for each part we have $15, okay? That is for here, $15. So here we can set the total amount of the money, maybe for here we have A's 3 parts, B's 4 parts, and these 5 parts. So together we have 12 parts, right? So for 12 parts, we times each part is $15. And here we can set the final answer is maybe for $180. Okay? That is for these problems. I guess you have to just understanding for the ratios and understanding how to calculate them. They are very interesting and they are very challenging for you for the last question. There are 3 values. Okay? Okay, that is for today's our lesson. So I hope you can just trying to review for them and just trying to understand all of the like practice right here. They're all the difficult. Okay, so see you next time. Bye.